Okay, so I needed to be honest with me for a second. When was the last time you actually felt something playing a video game? Not just enjoyed it, not just that. Yeah, that was fun, but actually felt it. Like you finished a session and just sat there for a second before closing the console because you were not ready to go back to real life yet, and the endings either pissed you off or made you depressed. Like hell. Persona 5 did that to me, and I'm pretty sure if you've played it, it did that to you too. Otherwise, why are you even here on my video? I'm literally just a niche Persona creator. The spin-off logos one by one, Dancing in Starlight, Tactica, Phantom X, the fitness boxing collab, the recent one, and then Atlus took that game, the freaking masterpiece they carved and spent 10 years turning it into a product. I mean, come on, Persona 5 Tactica to Persona 5 Royal was like graffiti on Mona Lisa. This is the story of how a masterpiece became a money machine. And more uncomfortably, how we helped them build it. Yes, you're obviously a part of it. I don't know how you discovered Persona. Maybe you have played the game, maybe you have seen my edits, maybe you have watched the Persona 5 or Persona 3 anime, maybe you have just randomly found it on Steam. Who knows? But before Persona 5, the Persona franchise was this thing you would randomly discover at 2 AM on a Game FAQs forum. You see JRPG, compare it to Danganronpa and move on? Is that what you wanted to hear? Eh? My Indian accent? Meanwhile, Persona 4 was dominating the streets of America and Brazil. U's game had earned critical praise, a dedicated fan base, but it still was not mainstream. Nope, not even close. And then, Persona 5 dropped in 2016. Originally in Japan first, and the sales figures were something Atlus had never seen before. First month in the West, they shipped 1.5 million copies. To put that in context, Persona 4 Golden, which was a beloved re-release on PS Vita, and maybe even your favorite Persona game, got outsold by Persona 5 within a month. Persona 5 outsold its entire history within a week. But here's the thing, even if the sales numbers are impressive and cultivated, raw sales numbers don't actually explain what happened. What happened was not just commercial, it was actually cultural. Just like every other Persona game, Persona 5 had its own unique color contrast. The color red and black, which felt very stylish to say the least, and again, just like every other Persona game, it also has its own music theme. The jazz music, or acid jazz to be more precise, which was so good that it had no right to be this criminal. Like somebody explained to me, how does a JRPG game has a better soundtrack than an actual jazz album out there? I will wait. A UI so stylish that graphic designers were writing breakdowns and articles about it. The kind of game where you're just looking through the menu minutes straight. I swear to God, Atlus stole retention formulas from Instagram, man. And then, underneath all that aesthetic, the core of Persona 5. The premise. High school students with supernatural powers, fighting corrupt adults who had broken every system that was supposed to protect them. That premise was unique, and they did not mess up presenting it. Not that it was presented as a fantasy product, it landed because millions of people, especially in the West during 2016 and 2017, had grown up feeling exactly that. Failed by institutions, failed by authority, failed by the adults, who were supposed to have answers and very clearly did not. Now, I said earlier that Persona 5 had something completely unique that most people feel while playing, but cannot really recall that feeling. I will get to that, but first I need to tell you about who the premise revolves around. And that guy is Ren Amamiya. Yep, he's him. If you don't understand him, nothing else in this video makes sense. So as soon as you start playing the game, Ren is seen indulging in a scenario where a lady is being harassed by this individual, whose name is later revealed. Ren is basically a considerate, compassionate guy at this point of the story, so he did the right thing in this regard. He stepped in to stop a politician, a man named Masayoshi Shido, from harassing a woman. And he got sent to jail. I mean, of course. He was then expelled and put on probation under Sai Nijima, a major character later in the story. After his probation, Ren was sent to a different city to live above a coffee shop with Sojiro Sakura. Sojiro later acts like his father figure and gives him a shelter to live, basically a small attic, barely fit for living, but Ren manages anyway. Now we move on. He got admission to Shujin Academy. Despite being infamous for his actions portrayed by the society, he walks into Shujin Academy and he does not even need an introduction. His classmates already know who he is. Rumors spread that he might carry a knife, he does drugs, you know, all the stuff that you might face when you're in probation, of course. Teachers look at him like a problem, administrators look at him like a liability. His own guardian, Sojiro, looks at him like a clock he has to wait out. And at this point of the story, he's living a difficult life. But however, it changes later on. So we have seen him basically leaving his comfort zone and get dragged into unwanted fuss and discomfort. Also being in the new city and how he gets treated on initially, which is the whole premise shortened into his introduction in itself. This uniqueness of Persona 5 is what I think separates it from almost every other game of its generation already. There is a concept in psychology regarding Ren's failures. It's called the fundamental attribution error, the tendency to attribute someone's circumstances to their character rather than to the situation that created those circumstances. We see someone struggling and we decide that's who they are, not what happened. Like, we completely ignore the freaking context. Later, Ren meets this guy whose name is Ryuji. He becomes a closer friend to Ren and plays a major role in the story. Later, Ren also meets Aunt Takamaki during a regular day who's taken by Kamoshida. He senses something wrong and decides to follow them along with Ryuji. And then this happens. He becomes the trickster according to the story, a wild card with the ability to make and wield multiple personas in this organization called Velvet Room Incorporation or whatever. Bro, what the shit is Velvet Room? Now, that is the something that I was talking about earlier in the video. The thing all of us felt but never named. Persona 5's whole story revolves around growth, character development, and compassion. Persona 5 Royal launches in 2020, expanded version with new arc and new characters. It was an expanded version with new arc and new characters with also this new third semester that recontextualizes everything basically. It was released on PS4 on this exact day. I don't know, I'll put it on the screen probably. And over 1 million copies got sold in the first month. Which is like actually crazy for Persona. So with that, there it goes. Atlus built their piggy bank. Yay! Which I would not say is a bad thing as a company being constantly pressured by their parent company Sega. Persona 5 definitely gave them the Christopher Nolan surprise. But yeah, they figured it out. Okay, I'm going to read you a list and I want you to just sit with it, okay? So here it goes. This is what Atlus released between Persona 5 in 2016 and any announcement of Persona 6. Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight, Rhythm Game, 2018. Persona Q2 New Cinema Labyrinth, Dungeon Crawler, 2018. Persona 5 The Animation, an anime adaptation of the base game, also 2018. Persona 5 Royal, expanded version of the re-release Persona 5, then ported to every modern platform in 2022, just in case you'd missed it. Joker in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate 2019. Persona 5 Strikers, Musou-style RPG action, sequel 2020. Persona 5 Tactica, tactical RPG spin-off 2023. Persona 5 The Phantom X, gacha mobile game developed by a Chinese studio. Global launch 2025. And then a Persona 5 collaboration with a fitness boxing game. January 2026, during the franchise's 30th anniversary. So this shit is what we got while we have been waiting for Persona 6. Folks, what? I'm not even joking. This dude, this handsome looking young lad, and a so-called symbol of rebellion against the corrupt system or whatever, was in a fitness boxing collab that happened. And that is a real thing, by the way, that occurred. At this point, Diddy was innocent. Or something. I don't know. I'm not claiming that. I'm just making a rhetorical statement. Okay, look, not all of these are bad. Strikers is actually excellent. Royal is generally better than the base game in almost every way. Even Tactica, criticized for being too simple, is at least okay-ish. It's not that bad. Problem was never any individual release. The problem is the oversaturation of the same title over and over again. Atlus kept milking and milking Persona 5 over and over again. Every other spin-off Atlus released sent a signal, and over a decade, those signals accumulated into one message. We are not working on Persona 6, we are working on how to sell you Persona 5 more and more so we could sell you the same nostalgia bit more and more. Phantom X was also the melting point in this scenario. P5X was not developed by Atlus internally. To those who did not know, it was from a Chinese mobile studio launched globally in 2025. Peaked at over 40,000 players on Steam, the best launch of any Persona spin-off on the platform. And within weeks, it became the worst reviewed Atlus game on Steam. 57 positive reviews, dragged down by gacha mechanics, fans described as unplayable. Random reward systems, compulsion loops. These gacha loops are literally wired to fill in the needs of your head, by the way. But at the end of the day, I still enjoyed it. I mean, despite Atlus milks Persona 5 so hard, I still find anything related to Persona 5 playable and enjoyable. Because that's the entire game of Atlus. We are just being nostalgia baited and we are just liking it. We're just never gonna get Persona 6 at this point. But enough criticism though. I will be fair here now, because I think intellectual honesty matters from a purely business perspective. Atlus logic is fair. The Persona 5 series, including spin-offs, had crossed 13 million total sales by late 2025. Sega, Atlus's parent company, was describing it in investor reports as their biggest commercial success ever. Persona 5 was pulling crazy numbers, which increased the pressure to keep producing it along with Metaphor. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Metaphor became one of 2024's most critically acclaimed games. The spin-off revenue probably funded the creative risk it needed to exist. Okay, this is the part where it would be really easy and honestly kind of satisfying to just say Atlus bad, spin-offs are bad, give us Persona 6 and move on. But I think that framing misses the most interesting part of this whole story. Because Persona franchise fatigue is not just a business problem, it's a psychological one. And to understand it properly, you have to go back to the thing that made Persona 5 worth caring for in the first place.
There is a concept in existential psychology called objectification. When a living, dynamic thing gets reduced to its instrumental value, it is useful. When Joker appeared in Smash Bros., nobody at Nintendo or Atlus sat down and asked, what does this character mean? And what does his presence here even communicate? He was there because he was recognizable. He was marketable and cross-promotional. I'm not saying the rest of the cast was not. Persona 5 is a hella stylish game. But Persona 5 eventually became a commercial instrument rather than a piece of art. And yes, I would romanticize it better that way, because we loved Persona 5 for its uniqueness. I mean, look at the music, story, characters, everything just resonates. And when you take such a thing away just to use it for commercial purposes and oversaturate its fundamentals, you're gonna get criticized for it. There's actually a moment in Persona 5 itself, multiple moments in fact, where the Phantom Thieves question whether they are truly doing justice or just imposing their own will. The game is deeply, consciously self-aware about the moral ambiguity of what they are doing. As if it's asking, when you believe you're helping someone, how do you know you're not just feeding your own need for control? Atlus might want to sit with a version of that question. When you release another Persona 5 product, believing you're giving fans what they want, are you though? Or are you serving the quarterly report? Because the people who built this franchise into what it became didn't do it because they wanted more of the same. They built it because Persona 5 made them feel something they never had feel in a game before. They built it because Persona 5 is a unique game. I don't want to glaze this game anymore because I've already glazed enough, but you know why this is so unique. And the worst thing Atlus can do to that feeling is to manufacture it on an assembly line until the feeling itself stops meaning anything. Persona 5's inner core, like the game's resolution, is that identity cannot be assigned from the outside. It has to be discovered, fought for, renewed from within. It takes a different inner world to find your own identity. That's the concept. That's the inner core of Persona 5. Atlus spent a decade assigning Persona 5 an identity, a profitable IP. And in doing so, they risk losing the only thing that actually made it valuable. Not the sales numbers, but the emotional aspect of the game that made people buy the game. Persona 5 is still one of the greatest games ever made. No spin-off erases that. No gacha app takes away the feeling of our scene. But something has changed. When Persona 6 finally arrives, because it will eventually, of course, Atlus is going to meet an audience that is more guarded than the one they had in 2017. An audience that has learned slowly and reluctantly that loving something does not protect you from the people who own it. Joker's whole story was about fighting to keep an identity that a corrupt system tried to take away from him. The question now is whether Atlus will let Persona 6 be its own thing, or whether it will try to make it carry the entire weight of what the Phantom Thieves brand has become. That's the final boss of Atlus, I would say, in my hypothesis. Tell me in the comments, do you still trust Atlus, or has the decade of spin-offs changed something that can't be changed back? I mean, guys, come on. Despite all of it, yeah, they will market Persona 6 more. And they should. They of course should. But yeah, just enough with the Persona 5 remakes already, and give us Persona 6. That's it for the video. It took me a while to make this, and I know it might not be the finest hypothesis on YouTube, but yeah, I'm still learning. Do let me know in comments what videos I should make next, because your support makes me really feel good. So yeah, that's it. See you in the next